Hello, my name is Tomer, and I'm from the Quali Torque team. What I'm going to show you is a way for you to use your Terraform files or launch them in a simple way using Torque. So let's say I'm a programmer and I have a Terraform files lying somewhere in a repository, for example, Tomer Playground. What I'm going to do is take one of these Terraform files and launch it using a sandbox in Torque. So if we go to Torque, what we're going to see is the administration panel. And in the administration panel, there is a repository. This is the way we connect repository from GitHub to Torque. You can add the repository from GitHub. I just added this one ahead of time. We have the repository. And now how do we connect the Terraform modules to this repository in Torque? We have what's called an asset. Asset is the basic configuration of this Terraform in Torque. So we are saying to Torque, hey, we have the repository, we have some Terraform file in there, we want to launch them, please. So what we are going to do is to add the module or add the Terraform module basic files. And we can give it a name and a description. We have to give it the repository that we entered in Torque. Right now it's the Tomer Playground, as I said, and the path to the TF modules. Right now, if I want to use the output URL, then the path will be output URL slash Terraform slash output URL because the Tomer Playground repo is already registered in Torque. We'll put it right here, and we will choose the Terraform version that I want to deploy using Torque. Let's say this one. What I'm going to do now is just say if I want to auto tag for the Terraform files. Auto tagging is what Torque do is to put tags on every resources that this Terraform file has for cost analysis later and for some other things that the customer value. Next, we have the input section and the output section. So basically, if you have an inputs in the Terraform files or you have an outputs in the Terraform files, you will declare them right here, giving them the name, the value, and the description if you want. The display style is normal for normal text or masked for password and such. And you can say if it's optional for Torque or even if it's overridable, and we will talk about it later. Next, you have the compute services, and you can you can deploy this Terraform module into each of the compute services, AWS, Azure, Kubernetes, and you can choose multiple compute services here. Later on, you will be more specific, but here is just the basic configuration and the overall specs of this Terraform module. Next, you will use the allow spaces and says this Terraform module, the administrator does it, right? Here I'm playing two hats. I'm the administrator and I'm the end user, as we will see later. But here in the administrator, when he created the TF module, he can specify which spaces this Terraform module can be launched at. Right now, I can say yes to all of the spaces and then save it as a Terraform module. Here, I already did it, right? I added the module called input outputs, and we can play it in AWS. So we can see the name, the Terraform path, the inputs, the outputs that it has, the compute services, as I said before, AWS EC2, and I put it on all spaces. Now, after this is the second step. We have the repo, we have the Terraform module. Third step is actually creating a blueprint from it. Torque will automatically create the blueprints using the configs that you just created. And if we create a new blueprint, we can choose the Terraform module that we created before and just click confirm. And now we are more specific. Before we were more general, now we are more specific and saying, okay, I want to create a blueprint. It's the blueprint for the sandbox. And I want to give it an alias, some description. And here I specify which compute services I want. If before I was allowing AWS and Azure to be played using this Terraform file, here I specify which compute service I want to deploy the Terraform file into. So I will use EC2 and the input, as I said, I can override the input if the administrator allowed me. Here we can see that he allowed me, so I can use edit and just enter this different value. So after I did it, after I saved it, we can see that we have a blueprint. We can unpublish it or publish it. Unpublish it meaning that no one can use it. Publish, we can use it out of the box. Here it's published. And the last steps is to create a sandbox from it. So we go to Sandbox, we go to New Sandbox, the Terraform blueprint, and clicking the blueprint that we created, the auto-generated one. Setting the parameters, here we can change the value again if we want, give the sandbox a name, and just launch it. And that's it. And it's just a simple way for a developer to take his own Terraform files in the repository and just deploy them quickly without needing to give the end user the password, the access keys, and all of this is all wrapped around using Torque, and the end user can just click Launch Sandbox, and the Terraform file create its resource. We can see the log when it will be available. So we can see that the Sandbox finished launching, and we can go and see the logs of each step, the init, the plan, the apply, and we can see the result right here. It's just a simple output, but it can be anything that the Terraform script does.